that it is recording in progress.
Thank you.
Yep, we're good.
Hi, welcome everyone. We're going to start shortly at 1:05. It's 1:05, so welcome. It's good seeing everyone. I'm Nidra Sims Fears, Executive Director of the Greater Chatham Initiative, and we're pleased to have you our proven ways to maximize corridor foot traffic. Jeremy, can you let people?
Yep, I'm letting people in as they
Okay, thank you.
enter.
And so today I'm one of your speakers and am the Executive Director of the Greater Chatham Initiative, and we'll talk about our place-based development Corporation shortly, and we're pleased to have Dr. Hae-Soon Jung from University of Cincinnati, who has become one of my placemaking gurus. Just pleased that she could come. So welcome. She is a dual native of Cincinnati and Chicago, and I love her for that. And that she is both an architect and a professor. So you go, girl, and has been studying foot traffic for a long while, and she will wow you with all the great things that she has uncovered. So we have a simple agenda. I'll give you a brief overview about why I thought having Dr. John give us her presentation because it was so meaningful to Greater Chatham. And then she will give her, Dr. John will give her presentation, and then I will tell you how her presentation has helped shape our corridor development theory of change in our work. And then we should have a 15 to 20-minute question and answer. We envision that we should wrap up with our presentation by about 2:45, and then we have a half an hour where we would love to hear what you have to say and take your questions.
It's 1:45, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 2:15. So yes, so you will wrap up at, yes, Jeremy, we should finish at 1:45, and then we'll hour of question and answers to 2:15. And you can see on the map, for those of you who are not from Chicago, this is a map of Chicago. Chicago has 77 neighborhoods, and the four that are highlighted represent Greater Chatham, the four neighborhoods that I adore, live in, and champion with our work. And so just a brief, what is Greater Chatham? We serve four predominantly Black neighborhoods in the mid-south side of Chicago. It's 15 square miles. It is home to 118,000 people, almost 50,000 households. We have 5,000 businesses that employ 30,000 people. And we get 2 million visitors a year who come to eat and visit here. And this is where the South Side comes to shop, predominantly because we have a couple of big box stores that are here in our footprint. And so part of our work as a place-based economic development organization is to make sure that our corridors work and they work for our residents. And so many times people have this really very, I would say, new attitude that people shop online all the time and that brick and mortar is dead. But the reality is really just the opposite. 80% of people still shop in brick and mortar stores, and that is certainly true for personal items, grocery items, and others. And so I want to say that corridor shopping is very much alive and well, and that I just want to level set what neighborhoods that we support. The median income in Greater Chatham is $60,000, and that for those people who believe that people just whip out their credit cards to buy things, I just want to make you aware that 15% of our population is unbanked, so that they cash is king, and shopping on the corridor is really important. 40% don't have cars, and so they traverse our neighborhoods, and the median income of shop along our corridors make $45,000. So our working class folks really do frequent the corridors, and we see that when we look at our cell phone data, and we can see that they go get their nails done, and then they go and pick up some chicken from Harold's, pick up some, they grocery shop it, and then they go home. So corridors are alive and well. And so as I said, I'm a fangirl of Dr. John because we were trying to figure out why corridors work and what maximizes the um, the foot traffic along the corridor. We've been doing this work. GCI started in 2016, so we're going on 9 years, and we've had a lot of trial and error about what we should and should not invest in. And so I was really pleased when I found Dr. John's work that justify why this work was important. And so she has taken a critical lens to Main Street around the world and has looked at the mix of small businesses, housing, commerce, historic businesses, buildings, and murals, and has come up with some really remarkable findings. And so with that, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Dr. John.
Thank you, Nidra, for a kind introduction. Let me send the request. I just sent the request to share screen. Yep. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen? Okay, Nidra and Greater Chatham Initiatives, thank you so much for inviting me to this great opportunity. And I'm from Chicago, originally from South Korea, but I lived there for more than 10 years. So I'm very familiar with South side of Chicago. I still live there as part-time residents. So today I'm going to talk about some of my recent research related to cultural placemaking and sustainable urbanism, which can also help communities on the south side of Chicago. So let me share a little bit of background of my research, which has greatly founded the research question and design question. So my research has been derived from the idea of Jane Jacobs, who promoted the idea of human-centric cities. She was a great pioneer in the 1960s against the big movements of urban renewal. So against these big gestures and top-down planning initiatives, she promoted more people-centric urbanism. And she said when the cities and neighborhoods have urban density, more diverse of people, more diversity of buildings, and more walkable design of streets, then it will attract more eyes on the street, which helps more spontaneous safety and the vitality of the neighborhoods. So over the last few decades, a lot of scholars and practitioners have studied on the physical form of the cities, which is related to density and diversity. But I also found that there has been a lot of, there has been a lack of studies on cultural form or social environment, which includes the ways of life, values of taste, and how they together impact on street activation. So my PhD dissertation was actually about that, the role of arts and cultural environment on walking, cycling, and transit use in the US, France, and Korea. And I also looked at the city level, Chicago, Paris, and Seoul. So over the last 10 years, I have been working with various scholars across the cities, including Professor Terry Clark at the University of Chicago and Emily Tallon. So a lot of research that I'm doing is extension of the research called the Scenescape. The Scenescape is actually the title of the book written by Terry Clark and Dan Silver. And he is an urban sociologist, and I've been collaborating with Terry Clark and as well as other scholars in different universities. So in that theory, we are basically looking at different amenities, tattoo parlors, coffee shops, galleries, opera house, etc., And we have collected these amenities from different data sources like Yellow Pages, US Census, and the survey. Then we codify these amenities into 15 scenes dimensions, which are legitimacy, theatricality, and authenticity. So these are all 15 dimensions that represent the different characters of neighborhood. And statistically, we have collected these amenities and codified this into 15 dimension scores. So now we can use these scores to understand which neighborhood is more transgressive, more self-expressive, or more ethnic or corporate. So as a result, we have 15 dimension scores for all 45,000 zip codes in the United States. So I often get this question of how to visualize these scenes, right? It's great that we have this data source, but how can we actually visualize these scenes? So we can also do qualitative case studies, looking at different street environments, how people move around, what conversations they have, what outfits they wear, etc. More qualitative aspects of neighborhoods. So for example, Bohemia is, kind of a cultural term that came from 19th century Paris, which was also associated with liberal and artistic lifestyle. But we can also look at different amenities which are correlated with this Bohemian lifestyle. So Wicker Park is a great example of a Bohemian neighborhood. Individualistic is more corporate, downtown, business-oriented neighborhood. Sometimes it's a neighborhood, but it's also district, like downtown area, which has a lot of banks, hotels, fast food restaurants, and it has more, organic solidarity or individualistic culture. And then the last culture I was more interested in, it was the communitarian neighborhood. Communitarianism is also very neighborly, also very ethnic, and also very traditional. So Chinatown or Bronzeville are the great examples of communitarian neighborhoods. So I'm going to share my most recent research, actually supported by National Endowment for the Arts, the grant. So in that research, the central question was, do murals and the arts contribute to street vitality and economic growth? So I live in Cincinnati currently. So the first impression of the city when I got here was a large presence of murals. You can see murals pretty much everywhere, but especially in downtown and over the Rhine area, which is in the north of the downtown area. So according to USA Today, last year, Cincinnati actually ranked as #1 city for street art based on popular votes. And the number of murals is actually growing very rapidly and has been increasing nearly 20 times since it was launched in 2007. These are the two good examples of murals you can easily find in downtown area. These two murals both represent the cultural heritage of the city. One commemorates the toy heritage of the firm that used to manufacture a lot of toys in Cincinnati. Another one on the right shows Neil Armstrong, who was based in Cincinnati, who walked in the moon for the first time. And he was also professor at the University of Cincinnati. So the main art commissioner is Artworks Cincinnati, which is a nonprofit organization, and they launched this mural program in 2007. And since then, there were only 9 murals in the first year, and then it has dramatically increased to over 200 murals as of now. So you can see that it's actually fast growing, and the organization is also trying to have a community engagement with the mural program, so that it's not just a decorative element, but also it speaks to the neighborhood and it helps the tourism, etc. So Cincinnati is a medium-scale city. Of course, it's smaller than Chicago, but there has been a great interest in art and culture over the past few decades. So there is an artistic buzz, which is about this Blink Art Festival that happens every 2 years. And it attracts about 2 million visitors from local and outside of Cincinnati. So together, this artistic buzz that includes the Blink Art Festival and the mural program contributed a lot to reshaping the identity of Cincinnati. And people actually come to Cincinnati to see the murals and also enjoy this night festival. So with the data from Artworks, I was able to aggregate the number of murals by the neighborhood. And as you can see, over the Rhine, which is also a very historic neighborhood, well known for German settlement in the 19th century, has the largest number of murals, which is 55 murals. And that's double the number in downtown area. So we can see that over the Rhine is actually growing in terms of new mixed-use development, as well as the arts and culture. And this is the Ohio River, as we discussed earlier. Of course, it's great that we have a mural data, but I was also interested in how murals are associated with the social and economic environment. So at the block level, I found that not only greater housing density, but areas with the murals also have high percentage of non-white, high percentage of higher education, more artists, and more percentage of non-auto commuting than other areas, as well as the city average. We can see that walking in mural blocks outperform the other two areas, which is non-mural area blocks and all blocks on average. And not just that, I also found that over the last 10 years, housing values in mural areas have increased by about 60%, which is greater than in areas without murals and higher than city average. And interestingly, when I present this, aspect of the murals, people always ask me a question about gentrification effect. And I noticed that there is a collective concern about gentrification. But I also realized that mural alone is not a cause of gentrification. It's actually a complex reason. There is a complexity of different factors that cause more gentrification dramatically. So we can talk about that later. But obviously, the murals have contributed to the economic growth at the household level and the regional level as well. So for the foot traffic data, I subscribed Streetlight data, which has this pedestrian count from cell phone signals. So they have all these signal counts from cell phones at different levels. So I was able to subscribe this data with NEA grant. So with this data set, I was able to aggregate this foot traffic at different geographic levels, like block level, block group level, zip code level, and even neighborhood level. And the only caveat of the foot traffic from Streetlight data is that the data is only available between the years 2019 and 2022. And they are trying to update more recent data, and I believe they will publish more recent data soon. But this map you see on the screen shows the foot traffic distribution in Cincinnati. You can see that the University of Cincinnati area right here has the highest foot traffic, as well as downtown and OTR area. There are also two stadiums nearby the waterfront, the Ohio River. So that also attracts a lot of foot traffic, especially in the summer and fall season. So I also analyzed how murals are associated with other urban amenities. I found that 40% of murals are co-located with cafes, restaurants, and other retails on the same block, which makes sense because these murals are pretty much located in the existing, more developed areas. Of course, we can see murals in the highways, like underpass of the bridge, or even, on the facade of the buildings, more in suburban areas. But mostly murals are aggregated and clustered around these main streets in OTR and downtown area. So foot traffic around the murals during the lunch hours significantly increases due to proximity to food and cultural amenities. You can see that between these two time, the foot traffic dramatically increases, right? So we can see that maybe murals are more synergizing these food-oriented amenities and retails. And murals on foot traffic at the block level, I found that the weekend foot traffic of the area with the mural is nearly 3 times greater than the area with no mural, as well as the city average. And this shows the foot traffic in OTR and downtown area. So overall, the area that has the murals have greater foot traffic than other areas without murals. But of course, we don't know that's because of mural or housing or transit stop, which has a good ridership. We don't know what exactly the cause is. So I try to reduce a lot of factors that could also contribute to this foot traffic. So I added controlled variables, which is called the matching sample method. And when that is under controlled condition, we can also see more pure relationship between the murals and the foot traffic. And I found that even with these controlled conditions, having amenities, having old buildings, mixed use, public transit, and no grading factors like gas stations, parking lot, or body shop, I still found that foot traffic of mural block is still higher than non-mural block areas. And you can see that especially when the murals and the non-mural blocks both have old buildings, there is bigger difference, right? So there is some indirect effect of old buildings synergized with murals on the foot traffic. So for example, this block in Over the Rhine has a mural surrounded by diverse local commerce in a walkable street environment. The foot traffic of this block with a mural in 2019, which was before COVID, was 4 times higher than other areas. And the good thing about this example is that we can see the quality of Main Street. The name of this street is actually Main Street, but it is also considered as a traditional Main Street because of this continuity of retails, storefront that is interactive with the pedestrian, and also diversity of small businesses, independent businesses in the mixed use environment. So I'm not gonna explain all the details, but just in sum, I also analyzed this relationship between murals and foot traffic as well as crime through regression analysis. So when we control other demographic variables like population, housing, income, rent, or education, and race, murals are linked to higher foot traffic. You can see it's highlighted here, but not to crime in Cincinnati. I wanted to see both foot traffic and crime in relation to murals because both foot traffic and crime are indicators of street vitality. But interestingly, these murals are not significantly correlated with crime. Both violent and non-violent crime in Cincinnati. It may be different in Chicago or New York or elsewhere because every place is different. But in the context of Cincinnati, this was the new finding. Now we can talk about third place. So third place is a coin term made by Ray Oldenburg in 1989 in his book, Great Good Places. So third place means, all the social and commercial amenities outside home and workplaces. So any places that people do social activities are considered as a third place. So they socialize more than just eat or buy in these types of amenities like cafes, pubs, bookstores, or barber shops, or even bowling alleys. And these are one of my favorite third place. Personally, I frequent these places a lot. In Chicago, Gaddis and Baker is right next to School of Art Institute. You can actually see a lot of art students and faculty talking about new ideas, entrepreneurship, and creative works. Bishop Arts District in Dallas is another example. I used to live in Dallas just for 3 years before I came to Cincinnati after I left Chicago. So Bishop Arts District is a very unique case because it has 100% independent businesses. And there is a great presence of murals, and also they try to have more sustainable development so that it attracts a lot of foot traffic at the pedestrian level. So which type of third place is growing in the whole United States? Of course, we can also look at different cities and metro areas, but overall in the US, there has been great increase in the types of well-being, health, and personal growth related amenities like cafes, breweries, tattoo parlors, hair salons, and gyms. And what's been going down is traditional leisure spaces and retails like bookstores, bars, and vintage stores, as well as the clothing stores. And of course, we don't go shopping to shop clothes or books from the bookstore. We can order online from Amazon or other platforms, right? So that reflects the changes in consumer behavior and also preference. But particularly cafes are growing more dramatically compared to other amenities. So in one of my research articles, I found that cafes actually drive artistic enclaves. And we can also look at surrounding cultural context. And I found that cafes drive the settlement of artists in a dense and walkable setting. And in particular, cafes in bohemian or communitarian neighborhoods tend to drive more settlement of artists than in corporate areas. So that means cafes have a synergy with bohemian or communitarian amenities in attracting more artists and the settlement of these artists. And the people walk and cycle more in neighborhoods surrounded by arts and bohemian amenities. And I found that that is consistent in the US, France, and Korea. And in the US, especially, there is a very significant correlation between bohemian and the cycling. So Wicker Park, Milwaukee Avenue, we can see this Milwaukee Avenue serving as a corridor compared to downtown area where all the amenities are more discrete. Of course, there are more number of amenities in downtown area, but cluster effect is more clearly visible in this type of neighborhood, right? So we can see continuity of these retails and congregation of these night venues and entertainment venues. That's why in Wicker Park, there's still a lot of people on the street. They walk and bike day and night. So that is what I found. And then now we can talk about foot traffic in Chatham and communities on the south side. This shows the foot traffic hotspot, which shows more than 1,000 people in this red dot in Chatham area. So we can see that these two stand out, which is 79th Street and Cottage Grove Avenue. And these are similar but different. So they both have very high foot traffic, but what's different is that the street environment and the collection of historic buildings. So we can actually analyze, which street is more attracting pedestrians because of the walkable street condition, right? The one on the left, which is 79th Street, has a lot of historic buildings, well preserved. There is a clearly visible storefront. Some of them are even renovated. The Mahalia's gift store, I believe. And there are a few other new stores popping up, more murals on the street. Other one, Cottage Grove Avenue is also very high foot traffic, but it also serves mainly as a transportation corridor rather than a pedestrian corridor, I'll say, because there are more buildings discretely located, and sometimes it's hard to find this continuity and the cluster of these retails in certain areas. So the Cottage Grove definitely has a lot of foot traffic, but I'll say 79th Street is a great example of Main Street, which is walkable and mixed. So we can focus on good urbanism of 79th Street as a corridor. It is a good example of historic preservation of old buildings. There are also new buildings like the library and the community center. A human scale walkable streetscape. I think with the efforts from GCI and the city, it's actually getting better and better. And mixed use development is also happening in many pockets of the streets. So these ABC, I try to, just focus on some of these, elements that define 79th Street corridor. And of course, with this initiative, we can see more murals growing on that strip of the street. And that also commemorates a historic roots of Mahalia Jackson, who was a pioneer of gospel music. And of course, in the future, we can, highlight more historic, history of the neighborhood and, bring more communities as a part of this effort. So beyond Chatham, I was also curious to see what other corridors are existing in Southside communities. And we can see that 47th Street in Bronzeville has a good cluster of amenities. 53rd Street in Hyde Park. Notably, it is also in the university area, so it has a lot of foot traffic derived from university staff, students, and faculty, as well as the medical building, people who work in the medical buildings. So these two are standing out in the map. So I wanted to analyze the foot traffic for 79th Street as well as other corridors in the charts. So average daily foot traffic of 79th Street is 413, which is twice that of Southside on average, 212. So 79th Street is still very vibrant and busier than the Southside on average. And we can also analyze this foot traffic by different times of the day. The foot traffic is highest in midday. which is 12 to 5. And we can see the difference between the average and the maximum foot traffic, right? So maximum foot traffic is 421, which is almost 3 times bigger than the average foot traffic, right? So how can we, improve and bring more foot traffic to the midday and peak PM time period, because there is a great potential we can, move forward. So streetscape improvements like seating, shade, or food vendors will be more effective if focused around lunchtime. And we can also use mural tours or bike tours that could also bring a lot of tourists to the area. Then I was trying to analyze the foot traffic of 79th Street in comparison to other corridors on the south side. We can see that Archer Avenue in Chinatown actually outperforms, which is more than 3,000 people at midday, and that is much higher than 53rd Street as well as other 3 streets. So 53rd Street has a strong afternoon foot traffic, which is in Hyde Park, supported by the U of C and mixed retails. 79th Street has a steady activity with foot traffic nearly twice the south side average, but still lower than 53rd Street. And Archer Avenue, as I mentioned, has the highest foot traffic among the corridors, peaking at 3,300 and more pedestrians at midday. And we can also look at foot traffic on the weekday versus weekend. So foot traffic on Archer Avenue in Chinatown nearly doubles on the weekends, right? We can see it jumps really dramatically. And 79th Street functions more as a weekday serving corridor, which is the Chatham, right? The yellow here. Yeah, 79th Street. So we can see that it actually has more weekday foot traffic than weekend foot traffic. I believe it's because of a commuting population that contributes to more weekday foot traffic. To grow activities in the 79th Street and Chatham overall, I think it may need more weekend destinations, events, and social amenities, along with other long-term investments like mixed income housing or community center, library, and civic amenities that could help this long-term population. And I added this in the last minute, so it looks a little crude, but we can see the key points here. South Archer Avenue in Chinatown has the most dynamic 24/7 pedestrian activity in the city. Of course, sometimes when there is a mall, like big box mall, that also brings a lot of foot traffic. But the next question is that really considered as a corridor or not? So to me, this Archer Avenue is a great example of a main street, just like 79th Street, 53rd Street, and others, because it is more pedestrian oriented. It has a good mix of amenities. Of course, it's in Chinatown, so it has a lot of Chinese restaurants. But when you actually look at the types of visitors, it's very diverse, right? It's not just Chinese visitors or Asian visitors. It actually attracts a lot of different people day and nighttime. So on average, 8,856 people visit this Archer Avenue. I tried to show this block in the satellite image. So just this block around the South Archer Avenue, surrounded by South Wentworth, this block only has 8,856 foot traffic every day. And we can see that it becomes a vibrant even at nighttime. And part of it is because other restaurants in downtown area close very early, right? Of course, if you go to north, like Lincoln Park, you can find more places open late night. But in South Side, this is the place you can go to at late night, right? Because restaurants operate very late time, and you can also have a variety of options for food and retails. So the final phase of this presentation, what are the design recommendations to support economic growth and cultural placemaking for the South Side communities? And these are, based on my research, so we can also discuss other ways to, make it better. But first of all, I think we can bring more consistent daily foot traffic. Mixed income and affordable housing near CTA transit corridors. 47th Street, I see there are different pockets of new housing developments, and some of them are supported by TIF districts, right? And we can also think about diversifying these street level retails to attract more varied users throughout the day. And the transportation corridor can be a good way of, synergizing this mixed retails because there is already infrastructure. So we can actually strengthen this transit corridors by focusing more on these areas through retails and housing together. This is just the image that I created with generative AI. In Chicago, there's no streetcar, but this was more imaginative rendering for just any city. And we can also host and accommodate different groups of people that could contribute to street art, like artists and entrepreneurs or students or different groups of occupations in this corridor. And then next, we can also think about hybrid of spatial programs. Sometimes businesses are single use or multi-use. I found that when the businesses are multi-use, it actually becomes more effective, drawing different types of visitors and people at different times of the day and different days of the week and seasons. So collaboration between artists and small business owners could synergize on the hybrid use of a space and the programs. So it can be a gallery cafes. So the Red Tree Coffee Art, for example, in Cincinnati, I go there a lot to work on my project. On the weekends, they have an art show, and on a regular day, they just use it as a coffee shop. And Volumes Book Cafe in Chicago, Wicker Park is another example. There's a very interesting, spatial connection between the bookstores and cafe. And it's very seamless, so you can do both activities at the same time. And then we can also promote placemaking and cultural events, especially in Chatham area. The question is, how can we reduce urban voids? Urban voids, I mean by parking lots, vacant buildings, all kinds of abandoned areas or unused areas, right? So to me, one of the key ideas could be reducing these urban voids and reuse these spaces for the communities. So transform parking and vacant lots into active spaces for art and community events. Mahalia Jackson Court is a great example of this conversion and adaptive reuse. And we can also think about different events like farmers market, urban farms, pop-up events, street performances. They could all happen in parking lots or vacant lots. And of course, urban farm requires a permit, but there are different examples of urban farm that are installed in the parking lots or vacant lots, even on a temporary basis. So we can think about permanent and temporary events. So Obama Center is coming, and according to the research, there will be 700,000 annual visitors, and it will create 5,000 jobs around this Stony Island Avenue and Hyde Park, as well as the South Side. So we can think about how we can collaborate and make a synergy with this Obama Center, right? And I thought about Southside tourism that could activate Chatham area and Grand Crossing and other neighborhoods overall. So we can also think about the mural tours, youth apprentice programs, where the young generations and the high school students can participate in art making processes and historic landmarks, art incubator, Theater Gate did a great job on adaptive reuse of abandoned bank. Now it's a community center and art gallery and library. So we can do more similar projects in other communities on the South Side. I just quickly made this map. This is actually showing the West Town mural tour initiated by Green Star Movement organization, and I just put this mural from Chatham area. So we can do something similar in the future to promote more tourism around Obama Center as well as other nodes. So it could create more foot traffic based on these events. And then we can also promote more adaptive reuse, and we can convert and reutilize existing buildings and infrastructure, promote rehabilitation of historic or underused buildings into mixed-use development or indoor skate park or garden or farm. And also we can light up the space underneath the passage or bridge or highway. There are a lot of spaces that are cut and fragmented by this infrastructure. And people are always, they try to avoid this space because it's dark, it feels unsafe. So how can we lighten up these spaces? There are many different possibilities. We can do it better. And then lastly, we can also start from small scale streetscape design. This is one of the projects sponsored by American Institute of Architects that I collaborated with Brian Hammersley, who is the head of Hammersley Architecture in Chicago. So in that project, we looked at Humboldt Park, which is predominantly Hispanic. So it is quite similar to Washington Park, right? Washington Park is predominantly Black community and Humboldt Park is more Hispanic. And the similarity between these two communities is that both parks are beautifully designed by Olmsted, right? And even though the park itself is beautifully designed, because of a large size, it's hard to navigate. And there are a lot of fragmentations around this green space. So we wanted to reconnect the dots and redesign the entry points of the park, as well as other, vacant lots and empty spaces. So it simply combines art, sustainability, and community efforts. We propose this project as a design build project. So communities can design and build their own follies and bus stations or seating areas with recycled materials or any other materials. And then they can use it for many other purposes like bulletin boards or wayfinding pieces. And that could activate public space for day and night and for multiple seasons. This is the vacant lot between the two residential buildings. And we can see this a lot on the south side, right? There are a lot of vacant lots. So how can we activate these vacant lots? Of course, it depends on the land use and the zoning, but we can also create a pocket park between these buildings. We can also turn a parking lot into ice skating or urban garden, urban farm, rain garden, and we can also propose these follies as a wayfinding pieces in large parks like Humboldt Park or Washington Park. And then we can also do rain garden or rain harvesting to help stormwater management. So, yep, that's all I have, and we can discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hae-Sung. Great presentation. I'm going to wrap everything up, and then we will go to your Q&A. So as I've indicated, I've been a big fan of Hae-Sung's work, and so it has helped us to come up with our theory of change. And so she didn't talk about it here, but in other papers, she has indicated that where there are 10 or more food-based businesses, foot traffic goes up dramatically. And we've seen this as well in Greater Chatham. And so our theory of change is we need to have 10 or more food-based businesses in a node of 3 to 4 blocks. And what happens is that we see storefront demand surges, storefront rents increase, and the higher rents incentivize landlords to upgrade their storefront. So we find that the market actually works, which is the point. And so we found this to be true when we did an analysis of 75th Street and 79th Street. The city of Chicago had a corridor development grant opportunity. And so we looked at 75th Street and 79th Street. And what we found is on 75th Street, which we affectionately call Restaurant Row, between Indiana and Vernon, that they have 11 food-based businesses and that they have an occupancy rate of 81%, which is really very high for a local storefront. And we found that even for that 81% occupancy rate, some of the storefronts were vacant because the landlords were trying to decide which tenant should go into the building. And because you had a significant occupancy rate, that landlords were willing to invest in the properties. And because we had the food-based businesses and they were high quality food-based businesses, that they had over 1.3 million in foot traffic visits, which were equated to 266,000 distinct visitors. Now, we compared this to 79th Street and Mahalia's Mile, which a 4-block node that had 9 food-based businesses. They had 55% storefront occupancy, and we only had 400,000 foot traffic visits, which equated to 100,000 distinct individuals. And so we just found it striking that it really fit with Hae-Sung's research, that it does matter having a concentration of food-based businesses. And for us, that made sense because when you think about it, people may buy a pair of shoes once a year, but they eat 3 days a week, 3 times a day, every day. And so those food-based businesses are their go-to. And so, based upon that, we've changed our focus and we really are looking at our 4 nodes along 79th Street that range from having 3 food-based businesses to 6 food-based businesses. And we're just trying to get more food-based businesses along those nodes so that we can get the kind of foot traffic that 75th Street enjoys. And then we just want to say we were been inspired by her work. And so we have been placekeeping the neighborhood. We've installed over 13 murals along the neighborhood with her. Hanson's research shows that people spend more time in the neighborhood, and when they spend looking at the murals, and when they spend more time, they spend more money. So it's a virtuous cycle, and so we've been working on that and plan to put in more murals. And so I just want to end with today is the second of GCI's Corridor Development Series. We had one last week, which was a great success called Culture Corridors and Community that was presented by AEO Middle Neighborhoods and the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And that was to celebrate our launch where we debuted our new finding called Plate by Plate, How Food Lab Chicago Builds Stronger Businesses and Communities, that documents how having ethnic corridors. Chatham is a soul food Caribbean and West African food district in Chicagoland, and that when we strengthen our restaurant businesses in our communities, it stabilizes the corridors. And with that, I just wanted to, along with Hasan, say thank you for coming. And with that, I would like to open it up for questions. Okay.
Hello, it's Ryan Greenlaw here from DPD. Very insightful conversations that you all had. Thank you for having it. But I do have a question with regard to the murals and those increasing the foot traffic. Is it just murals, or have you all done anything to test other forms of public art, as a proxy for, just, increasing that as well? So is it just murals, or does other public art, also serve that purpose?
Yes. So in the study of Cincinnati, I focused on murals because, if you look at the murals, they are always on the building facade, or they are more embedded to the existing, built environment. Whereas when we look at the arts overall, we can do other analysis. But in that particular study, I tried to look at the impact and the relationship of murals to the foot traffic and the crime. And another reason I did murals is that Cincinnati is increasing number of murals. So that's why I think it was quite meaningful to see what is actually the effect of murals, because there was no empirical research about the murals, and they were also looking for any findings that could help a strategic implication of murals, and then they can decide where to locate these murals based on the research. So that's how I started this project. And that's actually a great question. I'm actually looking at more different types of arts overall. I created art index, I called. So in that art index, I look at different types of art establishments like gallery, museum, opera house, etc., as well as independent artists using US Census business data. So I'm going to look at how art in general, art index relates to foot traffic in different cities. And that's going to be the next phase of the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Juana?
Hi there. I have a question for both Hasan and for Nidra. Hasan, in following Ryan's question about other types of arts form, how has the art been used? And I present this question as a challenge, and not a challenge, but a question also to Nidra about reimagining gateways with public arts, such as murals and sculptures and all that. You've looked at different examples, not only from Cincinnati, but perhaps other parts of the world. What are some of the ways and people have actually handled the gateways to their communities to create cultural corridors? And then to the question to Nidra is, how have you been rethinking, reimagining the gateways to these two corridors?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I was quite surprised to learn that I talked to Artworks Cincinnati, which is a commissioner of the mural program. And when they started this mural program, they actually thought about the community engagement in mind, but they don't have any specific strategy of where to locate this public art. So they are pretty open to any possible areas to create the public art, whether it's a mural or a sculpture, and they're trying to create new gateway, particularly around over the Rhine area because it's connected to downtown, but also it's a very historic neighborhood. So they were very much interested in recreating identity and recreating this corridor along these OTR neighborhoods. And they, using my research as a new finding, they are trying to create new gateway through murals and other forms of public art. And again, back to the earlier question, I looked at murals, but that there are different examples of public art like sculpture, and I would love to see the sculpture in other forms as well in the future. But in this case, I was only able to access the data of mural locations. So that was the start of the project. But definitely I can include more forms of public art in the future. But in this specific study, I looked at murals. And the creating the corridors is actually very important, and gateway as well. One of the projects in Over the Rhine is actually reusing the vacant lot into a pocket open space, like community space as a plaza, very similar to Mahalia Jackson Court Plaza. And there is a new arch and a new gateway to the community between the two buildings that have a mixed use. There are cafes and restaurants on the bottom with housing on top. So this type of gateway is not really independent, but it's also very embedded to existing residential neighborhood. So I see that it's also getting a lot of positive feedback from the community, and the people actually go to OTR a lot on the weekends to see the murals around the public space. So I think there has been a great success in terms of getting more tourists and more foot traffic through the arts. But the next question is how can we preserve more equitable growth of the communities relate to the gentrification question.
Thank you, Juana. Thank you, Hae-Sun. I would say for the Greater Chatham Initiative, we've been looking at gateway initiatives. And so we have drawings for sculptures, for murals, and particularly because we have Greater Chatham is porous. And so we have probably 12 intersections that people can access the neighborhood. And so really thinking about what is going to serve which point the best. And so we are shifting and really thinking more now about murals and putting murals on buildings because it's more cost effective. You can get more bang for the buck as opposed to spending $250,000 on one sculpture. So I think, but the reality is what Dr. Jong has said, that many people want to see art. People want to see art that's reflective of them, that place keeps the neighborhood. And I think the more the merrier. And with that, I'm going to go to Stacy Young, who has her hand raised.
Great, thank you. What an interesting presentation. Thank you so much. really engaging, bringing in both what's happening in Chatham and understanding Cincinnati and other areas. So based on both your experience, how engaged are the owners of the mixed use buildings along the 79th Street corridor and again in those other areas? Do they work with you to activate the spaces with the murals or other public art? Are they engaged in this idea of corridors?
Are you asking me or Nidra?
Both.
Okay. So actually, this was the first time I actually saw the foot traffic data of 79th Street, and I have not met any owners of any of buildings on 79th Street. So this is really the beginning of my new project. Nidra invited me to this workshop, and I had foot traffic data. So I started looking at the data, and that was the beginning of this presentation. And I'd love to meet with more owners and community residents in the future. We can also hold in-person workshop and think about different ways of making this community better. And I have done community workshop in the past in Chicago. So that worked pretty well with Hammersley Architecture. So yeah, I'd love to do more so. And in Cincinnati, I have collaborated with the organization Artworks, and I indirectly communicated with building owners, and some of them are very much interested in getting more foot traffic and visitors to the retails in their building, but they also want to broadly speak about the history of the neighborhood. So I was quite surprised of that as well. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have.
And I can speak a bit to the.
Thank you.
subject.
I would say that our property owners have been really good about allowing us to put the murals on their walls. They see it as a amenity, and they are particularly thankful to just have the murals to liven up the the streetscape. And but you do have to be conscious because some are very laissez-faire, others are very particular, and we try to meet them where they are so that we can have more murals decorate and delight our residents and visitors. And with that, I'm going to go to Ryan.
Sure, thanks again. Can you, Professor, share a little bit more about how Artworks Cincinnati is like organized? Is it like a nonprofit? Is it a government entity? And share a little bit more about like, I guess, their funding structures, just with the hopes of maybe like creating a partnership or working with an organization to potentially lead work like that in Chicago. I wonder if you have any advice about that.
Yes, so Artworks is a nonprofit organization. They are basically funded by ArtsWave, which is another organization. And Artworks is also greatly funded by both public and private grants, including the NEA grant. But we know what happened this year with NEA and other federal grants. So that's other story. But we can look at different funding strategies to support more art creation and cultural placemaking. And Artworks is definitely a major pioneer of these, art making processes, and they are trying to do more community engagement in the process of mural art, so that it's not just artistic element, but it also has a good collaboration with the building owners and the people who live in the neighborhoods, and the shopkeepers. So yeah, they are trying to lead the way, and they are the one that actually commissions the art. But in terms of the funding structure, they got funded by ArtsWave.
Thanks.
Yes.
And I have tons of other questions. I don't know if, unless I don't want to, take it over.
Ryan, go on and then I'll answer a question in the chat.
I think it's really, I guess maybe I'll make it a two-part question. One being, where do you get the foot traffic data for Chicago? Like, what's the process of looking into that? And also curious about like what collection of scenes across these like commercial corridors lead to, I guess, the most economic and social returns, in your opinion?
So I use the same data source, which is a street light data. I just had to subscribe another data from them for Chicago. And so, yeah, it's a same data source that I used for Cincinnati. And what was the second question? Sorry.
The second question was, you started off by suggesting the scenes, the bohemian, the other corporate type of structures, and the different, I guess, experiences that folks would get by that. I'm just thinking about I guess, the economic value that comes by having the collection of, the cafes and I don't know, the banks and all those things. And if you see more of an economic and social return across any of those categories.
Yes. So I found that in one of my studies, I found that more arts and bohemian neighborhood actually attract more artists. Cafes attract more artists in a long term, in 10-year period. And they could all together bring more economic development in those areas. So that's what I was trying to do with the cultural scenes, so that it's not just qualitative aspects of the neighborhoods, but how does that actually contribute to economic development. So that was one of the findings. And we can also look at different activities, right? Of course, if there are a lot of corporate businesses, that is, there is no question about how much they bring, how much revenue they bring to the area. But also, I think in relation to the foot traffic, we can also look at tourism aspect. And of course, downtown is a big player of tourism, but we can also highlight different pockets of the neighborhoods as part of that. And we can also activate different activities at different times of day, like nighttime, because in downtown area, I found that a lot of shops close. Even restaurants and cafes at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So there is a big migration of people from downtown to other neighborhoods for meeting other people and socializing. So we can also think about different ways of bringing more tourism and visitors to different areas more strategically. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Great, thank you. Marcia Nealon put in the chat, she indicated that we have in Greater Chatham, we have a couple of restaurants that received James Beard Awards, and she wanted to know if we had anything to do with that, and we did not. But they have done really exemplary work and have lifted up, I would say, Chicago overall, with having a very significant soul food, Caribbean, and West African food culture district, has really put soul food on the map as kind of high couture in culinary, and that has helped to undergird our soul food restaurants, that people are looking for food that is both authentic in both how they serve it, where they serve it, and so to the extent that we have, through our Food Lab Chicago work, highlight that we are that Soul Food Caribbean and West African food district in Chicagoland, and that people want that taste sensation. I was really blown away when I first looked at the cell phone data and learned that 2 million people came and ate in our neighborhoods, and they roamed as far from Southeast Michigan to Schaumburg because they really wanted those taste profiles. I was on a panel with Kellogg and Foods, and they were saying how they were losing the Black consumer because they didn't have that Black soul food taste profile. We have it. It is an amenity, and people travel to get it. And so I think that's just where your ethnic food enclaves. I mean, you look at Chinatown. I mean, Chinatown would not be Chinatown if they didn't serve food. Just saying. So food is really, really, really important.
Yes, and one other thing related to that is that I actually did statistical analysis to see how arts relate to the growth of third place businesses. And Chicago was the only city that had a significant relationship to that. So only in Chicago, compared to other 5 large cities, New York, Chicago, LA, Philadelphia, Houston, I compared all these with Chicago, and Chicago was the only city where the arts actually brings more growth of third place businesses like cafes, more taverns and bookstores and stuff. Yeah, so that was what makes Chicago even more special.
Great. Well, with that, I know that we can make our slides available. So if you did not register, if you put your emails in the chat, then we can make sure that we send it out. And then Professor John, I don't know what your policy is about sharing your presentation.
I'd love to share my slides, and yeah, I'm happy to talk more about that if you have any questions. Yeah.
Okay, and with that, I will let everyone put their, if we don't have your, if you didn't register through Eventbrite, put your email address in. And I just want to thank everyone for coming. It was a great conversation. And Dr. John, again, thank you. I've been reading all of your articles, and so it's just so nice to talk to you in person. And thank you for doing all your work and bringing that big brain and heart to make cities just better places for all of us. So thank you for your continued scholarship.
Thank you so much, Nidra and everyone, and I hope to see you soon in person.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I just had an idea, Nidra. I just want to wait till it's cleared.
Okay.
Nidra, I
okay.
think Oh, there's Lori Smith.
Lori's a friend.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think that this is a great presentations.
Comment on it, look, it came down to that, because his son was pulling up when I was showing, but they gave him 4 o'clock to make all the suggestions.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
I
Hey,
think
yes.
that I think there should be a way to broadcast and then maybe there should be a way to create where you create a podcast with you leading it and start building national momentum, local and national momentum, because I don't know anybody right now that's having these ongoing conversations as you're evolving as a cultural corridor and bringing all these remarkable people to speak. So I think that maybe thinking about a podcast, at your place or somewhere, and maybe even a YouTube channel that you own, but that you lead, and maybe someone can help you with that, because I think that this is something that people would want to really listen to and look at your archive. They have access to create an archive, on your site for people to listen to, create the podcasting on your site. Anyways, that's just a suggestion.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
All
Well,
right.
that was great. So much good information. Hi, Lori, how are you?
I'm going to get off then. I'll just get
Okay,
off.
okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Lana.